Bankruptcy on Tape brings you the shareholder complaint against Ionic Digital. Plaintiffs Tony V., Brett Perry, and Chris Villinger, by and through their undersigned counsel, respectfully submit this verified complaint to compel Ionic Digital to produce its stock list and related materials under Title 8, Section 220 of Delaware Code. Upon knowledge as to themselves and their own actions, and upon information and belief as to all other matters, including the investigation of its undersigned counsel, plaintiffs allege as follows. Nature of the action. 1. In July 2022, cryptocurrency lender Celsius Network LLC, together with affiliates, filed for bankruptcy. Thousands of depositors, including the plaintiffs and many other small business owners and retail investors, lost hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars due to Celsius's collapse. 2. As part of the court-approved plan for Celsius's reorganization, Ionic was incorporated in Delaware on January 5th of 2024 to hold and operate Celsius's digital currency mining assets for the benefit of certain creditors of Celsius. 3. Ionic's certificate of incorporation contains a transfer restriction that gives the company's board of directors total discretion to approve or deny stockholders' efforts to transfer or sell their shares until such time as the company has a registration statement declared effective by the United States Securities and Exchange Commission, or the stock is listed on a registered securities exchange. 4. From the start, the plan contemplated that Ionic would seek to facilitate liquidity for its shareholders. The official committee of unsecured creditors, which supported the plan and selected the majority of the board, represented to creditors, including plaintiffs, that Ionic would go public by May 1st of 2024. Once Ionic became a public corporation, its stockholders could sell their shares without the consent of the board. That has not happened. 5. On January 26th of 2024, Ionic filed a Form 10 with the SEC to register its stock and facilitate a NASDAQ listing. But since June 13th of 2024, when Ionic filed a second amendment to the Form 10, that effort appears to have ground to a halt. 6. Many stockholders became increasingly alarmed after turnover in Ionic's boardroom and senior management ranks began to resemble a game of hot potato. From 8 directors, the board shrank to 4. But that doesn't tell the whole story. By December of 2024, 7 directors have resigned. In the last year, the company has employed 3 CEOs, 3 CFOs, and 2 chief legal officers. Astoundingly, for a company seeking to register its stock, no new CFO has been announced since the last one resigned in December of 2024. The company's auditor resigned and was not replaced for months. The company disclosed this information belatedly after pressure from stockholders. Millions of dollars have been funneled out of Ionic, re-victimizing stockholders already hurt by Celsius's pre-bankruptcy fraud. 7. Plaintiffs have watched with dismay as the board, none of whom was elected by stockholders, has repeatedly proved itself unwilling or incapable of executing the stated goals of the plan. 2 of the remaining directors, Tom DeFiore and Scott Duffy, who co-chaired the UCC, have no experience as public company executives, public company directors, or managing a major digital currency miner. However, because they are Class 3 directors, they are insulated from the stockholder vote until the 2027 annual meeting. 8. Perhaps worst of all, the board has blocked efforts by stockholders to sell their shares privately, thereby thwarting one of their fundamental rights and inhibiting their only path to secure liquidity. 9. The plaintiffs who sustained substantial losses after depositing their cryptocurrency in Celsius's borrow and earn programs received shares of Ionic as partial compensation for their claims. They have watched with growing concern as the board has repeatedly demonstrated that it is incapable of overseeing the business as originally proposed. 10. Accordingly, plaintiffs have elected to team up with two cryptocurrency industry players, Figure Markets and GXD Labs, that plaintiffs met during the bankruptcy process in a joint effort to improve Ionic's governance. Plaintiffs believe that Figure Markets and GXD are well qualified and have proffered new ideas that will improve Ionic's performance and will ultimately permit its shares to trade. Figure Markets previously sought to buy Ionic stock, but that effort failed after the transfer agent informed Figure Markets that the board would not approve the transfer. Both Figure Markets and GXD also met with the board in an effort to address and assist with Ionic's problems without resorting to litigation, but were stonewalled. 11. With support from Figure Markets and GXD, plaintiffs plan to submit a competing slate of director candidates for the two Class 1 board seats up for election at Ionic's 2025 annual meeting, in the hopes of improving Ionic's governance. 12. Through a website created by Figure Markets, over 4,300 individuals, representing approximately 25% of the stockholder vote, have indicated support for board change. 13. Plaintiffs need access to Ionic's stock list and related materials to solicit Ionic's thousands of small stockholders ahead of the upcoming election. 14. Plaintiffs sent Section 220 demands on September 4th of 2024 and December 11th of 2024, attached as Exhibits A through B, seeking Ionic stock list materials to support their effort to inspire change at the company. 15. Ionic has not produced a single document in the following months, as it has delayed complying with its statutory obligations. Ionic has indicated it will provide its stock list materials, but only after plaintiffs execute a non-disclosure agreement with several unusual provisions. Again, to avoid litigation, plaintiffs preliminarily agreed to certain of these provisions, but one is particularly troublesome. In key part, it provides that plaintiffs may not rely on non-stockholders, e.g. Figure Markets or GXD, to fund their effort to run a competing slate of directors at the upcoming annual meeting. 16. The outside funds provision has nothing to do with a non-disclosure agreement or other legal obligations. It is a transparent effort to prevent plaintiffs from working with Figure Markets and GXD because they pose a threat to the status quo at Ionic. The stockholders have already lost millions of dollars and now face additional losses due to mismanagement at Ionic. Requiring plaintiffs to agree to the outside funds provision would ignore long-standing Delaware precedent that stockholders may collaborate with non-stockholders to create board-level change. It would also validate a practice that invites manipulation and misuse, including intrusive inquiries into the financial wherewithal of stockholders seeking to invoke a right fundamental to the exercise of the stockholder franchise. Most troublingly, it would reward the board's illegitimate efforts to entrench itself in the face of a much-needed challenge to its membership in response to its long-standing and repeated failures to execute the plan. 17. That entrenchment campaign goes beyond just the outside funds provision, and it is accelerating as the board's recent maneuvering around the company's annual meeting demonstrates. 18. The company, which was incorporated on January 5th of 2024, has never held an annual meeting, and stockholders have never had an opportunity to vote on directors. Under Delaware law, the company was required to hold an annual meeting within 13 months of its incorporation, which falls on February 5th of 2025. Not only did the company not hold a meeting by February 5th, it did not even designate a meeting date by February 5th. 19. On February 6th, after the 13-month deadline passed, the company set a date for the meeting, March 17th of 2025, over 14 months since the incorporation date. But it did so in a way designed to stymie stockholders seeking to nominate an alternative slate. Specifically, it timed the announcement so that stockholders, who ostensibly have 10 days to complete and submit the necessary nomination forms, effectively have only 1 day if the company takes the maximum amount of time to deliver the forms. Given the board's past actions, plaintiffs fully expect the board will take this opportunity to further disadvantage stockholders seeking to nominate alternative directors. 20. Thus, through the outside funds provision and calculated timing of the announcement of the annual meeting, the board has placed substantial, inequitable, and unwarranted obstacles in the way of stockholder nominations. 21. Ionic cannot meet its burden to show that the plaintiffs lack a proper purpose to obtain the stock list materials. The court should order the company to produce the stock list materials conditioned on plaintiff's execution of the form of confidentiality agreement attached as Exhibit D. 22. In light of the company's unjustified positions and conduct, which have needlessly increased the costs and burdened the stockholders' efforts to mount a proxy campaign, re-victimizing the victims of the Celsius fraud, the court should also shift fees. Jurisdiction. 23. This court has jurisdiction under Delaware Title 8, Section 220, which provides that the Court of Chancery has jurisdiction to determine whether or not the person seeking inspection is entitled to the inspection sought. The parties. 24. Plaintiff Tony Vaselli is an Ionic stockholder. Mr. Vaselli is a retail investor who runs a private transport business for the elderly/disabled, who lost hundreds of thousands of dollars in connection with the Celsius bankruptcy. He served on the steering committee for both the custody ad hoc group and the loan ad hoc group in the Celsius bankruptcy cases. 25. Plaintiff Brett Perry is an Ionic stockholder. Mr. Perry has a long history as an entrepreneur, beginning in the 1990s, with an environmental consulting and engineering firm specializing in the investigation and remediation of contaminated sites. Leveraging his expertise in real estate and environmental data, he built one of the most recognizable brands in property data and established what is now the largest digitized historical aerial film archive in the United States. More recently, he founded a film production company. He was one of the top 50 creditors in the Celsius bankruptcy, where he lost millions, and served as a member of the Earn Group steering committee in the bankruptcy cases. Under the plan, Mr. Perry was appointed to be an observer of the Ionic board, but since August 8th of 2024, the Ionic board has excluded him from meetings. 26. Plaintiff Christopher Villinger is an Ionic stockholder. Following a successful marketing career, Mr. Villinger is a self-employed real estate investor. Based on the consolidated list of creditors filed in the bankruptcy, he was Celsius's 7th largest creditor. 27. Defendant Ionic Digital, Inc. is a Delaware corporation headquartered in Coral Gables, Florida. Ionic was incorporated on January 5th of 2024. Factual background. A. Celsius defrauds its customers. 28. Celsius, formerly one of the world's leading cryptocurrency lending platforms, filed for bankruptcy in July of 2022 after halting all customer withdrawals following instability in the cryptocurrency markets and questions regarding Celsius's integrity. 29. Prior to its collapse, Celsius had marketed itself to retail investors as the safest place for your crypto. By early 2022, Celsius held $22 billion in crypto assets. The main methods by which Celsius obtained these assets were through the Earn Interest program, which solicited customers to deposit cryptocurrencies on the Celsius platform in exchange for as much as 18% in annual interest. The Custody Wallet program, by which customers deposited their coins into the custody of Celsius, and a Borrow program in which users borrowed money from Celsius and pledged their cryptocurrency assets as collateral. 30. At the time of the bankruptcy, Celsius had approximately 600,000 accounts in the Earn program, which held approximately $4.2 billion in cryptocurrency assets. The Custody program held $180 million in assets, while the Borrow program issued approximately $410 million in loans with collateral that had a market value of about $765 million. With Celsius's implosion, many depositors lost their life savings. 31. After the bankruptcy filing, Celsius's founder and former CEO, Alex Mashinsky, was indicted for orchestrating one of the biggest frauds in the cryptocurrency industry. A federal grand jury in Manhattan charged Mashinsky with luring ordinary retail crypto investors into investing billions of dollars in Celsius with false promises that their investments were low risk. Separately, the SEC charged Celsius and Mashinsky with making misleading statements to the public regarding the Earn program and Celsius's Cell token. 32. In 2024, Mashinsky pled guilty to 1 count of securities fraud and 1 count of commodities fraud. B. The origin of Ionic Digital. 33. As part of the bankruptcy cases, the Celsius debtors held a competitive auction for corporate assets, including Celsius's lending business and its mining assets. The winning bid contemplated a newco, which would be a public company and use both these assets. A backup bid was also selected, called the orderly wind down, or toggle, in case the SEC or other regulators did not pre-clear the registration of newco's common stock. 34. The Bankruptcy Court for the Southern District of New York confirmed the plan on November 9th of 2023, but shortly thereafter, the SEC denied pre-clearance, making implementation of the newco plan impossible. 35. On November 30th of 2023, the debtors and UCC proposed a modification to the plan, which allowed the debtors to spin off Celsius's mining assets into a new cryptocurrency miner sponsored by US Bitcoin, now known as Hut 8. The motion proposed that the new company, A, file a Form 10 and use best efforts to have the SEC declare it effective by May 1st of 2024, defined in the motion as the liquidity deadline. B, have $225 million cash in funding. C, enter into a 4-year contract with US Bitcoin. And D, have an 8-member board with 6 members appointed by the UCC and 2 by US Bitcoin. 36. On December 27th of 2023, over the protests of many creditors, including Plaintiff Villinger, and the objection of the U.S. trustee, who argued that the modification required a new vote and solicitation by impaired creditors, the bankruptcy court granted the motion. As a result, Ionic was incorporated in Delaware on January 5th of 2024. 37. The 6 directors appointed by the UCC included UCC co-chairman Scott Duffy and Thomas DiFiore, and their financial advisor Emmanuel Adu. In addition, Plaintiff Perry, a member of the steering committee for an ad hoc group of creditors arising out of claims relating to earned deposits, and 2 other creditors received board observer status. 38. The goal was always to ensure that the creditors could obtain liquidity by registering Ionic's common stock with the SEC and listing them on a national security exchange. As a result, Ionic filed a Form 10 with the SEC on January 26 of 2024, preparing itself for an IPO and NASDAQ listing. 39. On or about February 1st of 2024, more than 86,000 Celsius creditors, including plaintiffs, received shares of Ionic stock at a value of $20 per share as part of the plan's implementation. At the time, the debtors' experts, Centerview Partners, valued Ionic at around $740 million. C. Conflicted transactions and management failures. 40. Since Ionic's creation, the company's board and management team have entered into multiple questionable business arrangements that have not benefited Ionic stockholders. 41. The board's decision to award itself lucrative compensation, which was first disclosed in an amended Form 10 filed on April 30th of 2024, is but one example. Those fees include $240,000 annual compensation paid to each director for board service, plus fees ranging from $5,000 to $40,000 for service on standing committees. As a measure of industry comparison, Hut 8, which is a publicly traded company with a $2.1 billion market capitalization, reported in its 2024 proxy statement that total annual compensation of its directors ranged from $51,000 to $151,000 each. 42. The Ionic board fees standing alone are generous for a company that does not trade publicly. However, the board created a bespoke emergence committee with additional annual compensation of $195,000 for the chair and $180,000 for each director. Notably, the company's April 30th Form 10 disclosed that every member of the board serves on the emergence committee, which the website vaguely describes as ensuring the company is executing its business strategy in accordance with the plan. The board has never provided stockholders with an adequate explanation for the emergence committee, whose mission appears to be what a board seeking a NASDAQ listing does in the ordinary course. 43. This compensation structure and universal membership on the emergence committee has effectively set base compensation for each director at $420,000. According to a 2024 study published in the Harvard Law School Forum on Corporate Governance, only a dozen companies in the S&P 500 have set director compensation above $400,000, making Ionic an extreme outlier. 44. Although many stockholders were concerned about the company's business plan, their collective alarm magnified when the board repeatedly demonstrated it was not capable of overseeing the business as contemplated. Within the first 3 months, the revolving door at Ionic began to spin. 45. Over the last year, Ionic has had 3 CEOs, 2 interim, 3 CFOs, 2 interim, Ionic's website currently does not list a CFO, and 2 chief legal officers. 46. The turmoil extends to Ionic's professionals. On August 27th of 2024, Ionic belatedly announced via press release that prior to June 1st of 2024, at least 3 months earlier, it had terminated the master services agreement with Hut 8. According to the same press release, Hut 8 disputed the termination, and on June 19, 2024, the company and Hut 8 entered into an amended and restated MSA, the full terms of which were never publicly disclosed. Then, on December 4th of 2024, Ionic announced that it had terminated Hut 8 on November 26th of 2024. 47. Ionic's auditor resigned in May of 2024, which the company also did not announce until August of 2024. The company took until October 2024 to hire a new auditor, BDO. Ionic has yet to update its now stale financial statements. Absent audited financial statements, it cannot obtain a NASDAQ listing. 48. Board compensation requires a chart to track because only 3 of the original 8 directors remain. 49. Ionic's board of 8 has now been reduced to 4. Ms. LaPuma, the chair, Mr. Duffy, Mr. Flanders, and Mr. DiFiore. No current board members have any prior experience operating an institutional digital currency miner or a company whose primary operations require knowledge of infrastructure development, the power markets, and electrical engineering. Ms. LaPuma was a banker at UBS and other financial institutions. Mr. Flanders is the former CEO of Playboy Enterprises. 50. Scott Duffy, an accountant, and Thomas DiFiore, who ran an auto dealership, have no public company board or executive experience, capital markets experience, or any experience managing complex businesses remotely similar to Ionic. Instead, they gained board seats because they served on the UCC. They were supposed to serve as advocates for stockholders, but to date, they appear to have abdicated that role. 51. Critically, Messrs. DiFiore and Duffy are Class 3 directors who will not be up for election until the 2027 annual meeting. Thus, although plaintiffs believe that Messrs. DiFiore and Duffy have abdicated their roles as the stockholders' advocates and shown themselves to be incompetent, plaintiffs will not have the opportunity to vote them out at the 2025 annual meeting. 52. The seat of Board Chair LaPuma will be up for election at the 2025 annual meeting. Plaintiffs question Ms. LaPuma's ability to lead, given her track record as independent director at Ebix, Inc. and WeWork, Inc. During her board service, Ebix, Inc.'s market capitalization declined by $305 million, and the stock dropped from about $10 to 1/1000th of a penny. And WeWork, Inc.'s market capitalization declined by $244 million, and the stock dropped from about $1 to 2 cents. 53. The revolving door at the senior management and board levels has alarmed the broader stockholder base. The most vocal stockholders have communicated online regarding Ionic's lack of progress and the questionable decisions of the company's management. Everyone except the company's insiders appears to recognize that Ionic needs sure-handed active guidance. 54. Plaintiff Perry repeatedly expressed his concerns about the company's lack of direction. On August 8th of 2024, Ionic notified him that he would no longer be invited to observe board meetings. 55. Although press releases have revealed the turmoil at the company, plaintiffs and other stockholders have almost no information regarding the costs of operating the business, revenues, or profitability. 56. Plaintiffs plan to nominate a slate of directors for election as Class 1 directors at the company's next annual meeting. They firmly believe all stockholders should have a choice. The directors have been ineffective. For a year now, they had a mandate to create stockholder value. They have utterly failed to discharge that mandate or even provide stockholders with meaningful liquidity opportunities. D. Stockholders collaborate with Figure Markets and GXD. 57. Plaintiffs believe that Ionic can and will succeed if the stockholders elect capable decision makers to the board. To that end, plaintiffs have secured support from Figure Markets and GXD, 2 industry players who have been previously involved in the bankruptcy process as unsuccessful bidders, who have publicly put forward proposals regarding Ionic's future business direction. 58. Figure Markets, a blockchain-native decentralized custody exchange for digital assets, was spun out of Figure Technology Solutions, Inc., which was founded in 2018. Its affiliate Figure Securities, Inc., established in 2021, offers securities trading on its alternative trading system to customers, and is both registered by the SEC and a member of FINRA. 59. Certain individuals and entities affiliated with Figure Markets were previously associated with unsuccessful bidders in the Celsius bankruptcy. Nova Wolf Digital submitted the stalking horse bid in the Celsius bankruptcy auction, and that proposal contemplated that an affiliate of Figure Markets would tokenize the common equity of a new company comprising of the mining business and illiquid assets. 60. GXD is a digital asset and blockchain operating investment and advisory business. GXD's founders also co-founded Global X Digital, a successful large-scale Bitcoin miner in Oklahoma City, currently operating 140 megawatts. Global X Digital was Celsius's largest and most reliable host for compute power. During the pendency of the Celsius bankruptcy, Global X Digital senior management and board members traveled to Midland, Texas, where Celsius had a Bitcoin mining facility, and performed a deep dive review of the assets at the request of the UCC and its counsel. GXD has great knowledge and expertise of the Bitcoin mining industry, as well as Celsius's specific assets. 61. GXD was also the founding member of the Blockchain Recovery Investment Consortium, or BRIC, which was awarded the roles of complex asset recovery manager and litigation administrator on behalf of the post-emergent Celsius estate. During the Chapter 11 bankruptcy auction, the BRIC agreed to the role of backup plan sponsor and prepared for the potential event that Celsius could not emerge as a public company. BRIC worked with the debtors' management and professionals, preparing for a pivot to the orderly wind-down, which is what happened when the SEC did not approve the NewCo plan. Throughout the pendency of Chapter 11, the GXD team also developed relationships with Celsius customers and various members of the UCC. As a member of the BRIC, GXD continues to work to recover hundreds of millions of dollars for Celsius's defrauded customers. 62. Following Ionic's incorporation, its new stockholders face significant challenges refinancing and monetizing their investments. On July 31st of 2024, Plaintiff Viselli filed a public letter with the bankruptcy court protesting the board's lack of transparency with Ionic stockholders regarding the company's efforts to register its stock and expressing consternation that the Form 10 was still not effective. 63. On August 8th of 2024, Ionic issued a press release announcing initial CEO Matt Prusak's decision not to extend his contract, two changes on the board, the auditor resignation, which occurred in May, and the amendment of the HUT 8 MSA, which occurred in June. 64. Stockholders, including Mr. Viselli, reacted with frustration on X. Figure Markets responded to the posts, suggesting a conversation with stockholders. 65. On August 12th of 2024, Figure Markets publicly announced a plan to increase value at Ionic by adding representatives to the board, encouraging Ionic to list its stock on Figure Markets' alternative trading system, which does not require registration with the SEC, to give stockholders the opportunity to exercise their fundamental right to sell their shares and to otherwise transform corporate governance. 66. In or around August of 2024, Figure Markets spoke with several stockholders who expressed interest in selling their shares to Figure Markets. Figure Markets contacted the company's transfer agent and was informed that it could not make the transfers. 67. Figure Markets later supported Mr. Viselli's effort to investigate the board's conduct and potentially drive change at the board level. The initial idea was to call a special stockholder meeting to replace directors, which required approval from the holders of 25% of the company's outstanding stock. 68. Through outreach on X and other web-based platforms, Figure Markets collected names and contact information from the holders of over 4,300 stockholders, representing approximately 25% of Ionic's outstanding stock, who expressed support for calling a special meeting. GXD also expressed support for Figure Markets and Mr. Viselli's efforts. E. The stock list demands. 69. On September 4th of 2024, Mr. Viselli sent a formal demand to the company to inspect and copy certain books and records pursuant to Section 220. This narrowly tailored demand sought a stock list as well as additional documents relating to potential self-dealing at Ionic. The September demand listed a representative from Figure Markets as an agent who would help Mr. Viselli review the documents. 70. Ionic moved to evade the September demand. In its response, attached as Exhibit E, Ionic confirmed that it would be willing to produce certain documents, including the stock list, subject to stringent confidentiality requirements. In particular, Ionic's counsel wished to ensure that non-stockholders, such as Figure Markets, would not be able to review a copy of the stock list materials. 71. The parties negotiated over a confidentiality agreement governing how the stock list materials would be used. At the company's insistence, and in the interests of making commercially reasonable compromises, Mr. Viselli agreed to a bespoke provision that would ensure that, other than Mr. Viselli, only a specialized attorney or a proxy advisor could see the stock list and use it to send communications to stockholders. 72. However, Ionic was still unwilling to produce the list without the outside funds provision. Specifically, Ionic insisted that Mr. Viselli agree to represent that his attorney's fees, with respect to the September demand, as well as any ensuing proxy interest, will be paid solely out of pocket. On October 31, 2024, Ionic demanded that Mr. Viselli agree that no entity or individual other than stockholder, including but not limited to the group parties, will directly or indirectly pay, reimburse, or otherwise cover any costs incurred by the stockholder in connection with the company, the demand, or this agreement. This provision applies to any services rendered or expenses incurred in connection with stockholders' use of the produced list materials. A copy of the markup from Ionic's counsel is attached as Exhibit F. 73. This was a transparent tactic to avoid responding to the September demand. Mr. Viselli could never afford to wage a proxy fight on his own, and Ionic knows that. 74. On December 11th of 2024, Mr. Perry, Mr. Villinger, and 7 additional stockholders sent the company a 2020 demand seeking a copy of the stock list materials, attached as Exhibit B. 75. On December 17th of 2024, the 9 stockholders, through counsel, sent Ionic's counsel a form of NDA that omitted the outside funds provision, but included other onerous provisions requested by the company. See Exhibit G. 76. Again, Ionic, through its counsel, refused to produce the stock list materials without the outside funds provision. See Exhibit H. F. Ionic sets the March 17, 2025 meeting date. 77. Under Title 8, Section 211 of the Delaware Code, the company should have held the 2025 annual meeting by no later than February 5th of 2025, the 13-month anniversary of incorporation. As of February 5th of 2025, the company has not held the annual meeting or even designated a date for the annual meeting. 78. On February 6th of 2025, at 10:26 p.m., Ionic issued a press release announcing that the annual meeting would be held on March 17th of 2025. See Exhibit C. The board appears to have timed the announcement to stymie stockholders seeking to nominate an alternative slate. 79. First, stockholders have just 10 days in which to deliver nominations, that is, by Sunday, February 17th. However, because of the late-night press release, there are really 9 calendar days to deliver the nominations. 80. Second, under Article 2, Section 2.4 of the company's amended and restated bylaws, a stockholder seeking to nominate must request the form of written questionnaire and form of written representation and agreement, and the company has up to 5 business days to deliver them, that is, until February 13th. 81. Third, the bylaws require physical delivery of the nomination notice to Ionic's Coral Gables, Florida office. The address on SEC filings appears to be a co-working space, not a dedicated office. Because the deadline is a Sunday and plaintiffs have no confidence that they can deliver the notice over the weekend, the nomination notice and all completed forms must be in a courier's hands by Friday, February 14th. This means the plaintiffs have just 1 day to complete the forms if the company waits out the 5 full business days to deliver them. 82. On February 7th of 2025, shortly before midnight, plaintiffs emailed their request for forms to Ionic's chief legal officer and corporate secretary. Concerned that the company would utilize the full 5 business days to respond, they asked, given the company's late evening announcement of the date of the 2025 annual meeting of stockholders on February 6th of 2025 at 10:26 p.m. Eastern Time, we request that you send the requested materials as soon as possible and in no event later than 5 p.m. Eastern Time on Monday, February 10th, 2025. Any further delay would be inequitable. 83. As of Sunday, February 9th, 2025, plaintiffs have not received the forms. 84. On Friday, February 7th of 2025, plaintiffs, through their counsel, reiterated their demand for the stock list materials and proposed NDA. Plaintiffs asked that, due to the short time period until the annual meeting, the company respond by the close of business Friday to confirm that it would execute the NDA by 3 p.m. on Sunday, February 9th, and that the stock list materials would be produced promptly thereafter. A copy of the February 7th letter is Exhibit I, and the proposed NDA is Exhibit D. 85. The company did not send any response by the close of business February 7th to confirm that it would execute the NDA, or send the executed NDA by 3 p.m. Sunday. G. The board seeks entrenchment. 86. Through the outside funds provision and suspect timing of the announcement of the annual meeting, the board has placed substantial, inequitable, and unwarranted obstacles in the way of stockholder nominations. 87. Each of the plaintiffs has already suffered substantial losses due to the fraud perpetrated by Celsius and its CEO. Between a rock and a hard place, they accepted Ionic stock as partial consideration for their substantial losses. However, Ionic's board has failed them. 88. Thus far, Ionic stockholders cannot obtain liquidity for their shares either through private sales or any other platform. Plaintiffs have sought support from Figure Markets and GXD, without whom nominating and soliciting for a new slate of director candidates would have been impracticable. 89. The court should not permit the company to condition access to the stock list materials on executing a confidentiality agreement that includes the outside funds provision. Delaware law provides that a stockholder has a proper purpose in seeking the stock list when he desires to help elect an opposition slate of directors when banding together with non-stockholders. See Hirschfeld v. Emory Air Freight Corp. From 1988. The court should reject Ionic's attempt to avoid production of the stock list materials, as well as its attempt to dictate plaintiffs' funding arrangements via contract. The demands for inspections. 90. Plaintiffs seek an order compelling the company to produce the stock list materials in accordance with the demands. 91. Section 220 of the Delaware General Corporation Law provides in relevant part, the court may summarily order the corporation to permit the stockholder to inspect the corporation's stock ledger, an existing list of stockholders, and its other books and records, and to make copies or extracts therefrom, or the court may order the corporation to furnish to the stockholder a list of its stockholders as of a specific date, on condition that the stockholder first pay to the corporation the reasonable cost of obtaining and furnishing such list, and on such other conditions as the court deems appropriate. Where the stockholder seeks to inspect the corporation's stock ledger or list of stockholders and establishes that such stockholder is a stockholder and has complied with this section respecting the form and manner of making demand for inspection of such documents, the burden of proof shall be upon the corporation to establish that the inspection such stockholder seeks is for an improper purpose. 92. The demands satisfy all the form and manner requirements of Section 220. Plaintiff's purpose is proper. They seek the stock list materials in order to communicate with the other stockholders about candidates for election at the company's annual meeting. Plaintiffs have shown flexibility and made unnecessary concessions with respect to the non-disclosure agreement in order to obtain the stock list materials. The demands are narrowly tailored and easy to meet. 93. Nevertheless, the company continues to withhold production of the stock list materials on the grounds that plaintiffs must agree to the outside funds provision. Accordingly, plaintiffs seek a summary order under Section 220C requiring the company to promptly produce the stock list materials. Plaintiffs also seek fee shifting. Cause of action: stock list inspection under Title 8, Section 220 of the Delaware Corporate Code. 94. Plaintiffs repeat and reallege all the allegations above as though fully set forth herein. 95. Plaintiffs have made written demands upon the company to inspect the company's stock list materials. The demands fully comply with all the requirements of Section 220 with respect to the form and manner of making a demand to inspect the company's books and records. 96. Plaintiffs have a proper purpose to obtain the list of stockholders to assist with an effort to nominate and solicit votes for director candidates subject to election at the company's next annual meeting. 97. The company has refused to provide plaintiffs with access to the stock list materials. 98. By reason of the foregoing and pursuant to Section 220, plaintiffs request a summary order compelling the company to provide its stock list materials under the form of confidentiality agreement attached in Exhibit D. Prayer for relief. Wherefore, plaintiffs pray that this court summarily enter judgment in favor of plaintiffs and against the company. A. Ordering the company to produce to plaintiffs the stock list materials. B. Awarding plaintiffs the costs and expenses incurred in this action, including reasonable attorney's fees. And C. Granting plaintiffs any and all further relief as the court deems just and proper. Of counsel A. Thompson Bayless with Nicholas F. Maestra of Abrams and Bayless LLP, along with Adrian Ward, Lori Marks Hesterman, and Jacqueline Ma of Olshan from Walski LLP.